try to fit in as many as we can, but when it's like it is long, I try to.
Right.
Should we wait for Lori or?
I'm not aware of her being absent. I'll text.
Oh.
That might be.
That's her right
There she is.
Are you okay?
It's not right to do it in slam. It's not right to do it in slam.
All right. We will go ahead and get started. Sean will be here and join us in progress at some point, but I will go ahead and get the meeting started. Do we have any?
You don't, sir.
Huh?
I can check the gallery. Mr. Hunt has
Okay.
not signed up. So
Okay.
We have not had anyone sign up for public comment.
Welcome guests. Guest. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
there. I move we approve the agenda.
Have a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor of approving the agenda, please raise your right hand.
I abstain.
Oh, okay. Motion passes. Nobody wants to speak in open forum, or we don't have any speakers, I should say.
You don't, sir.
Approval of consent agenda. Let's see what's in there.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
We have a second?
Second?
Okay. Motion's made and seconded to approve the consent agenda, which consists of last meeting's board minutes. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. Okay. All those opposed?
That's what I have to abstain
Yeah, that's what you have to
from.
abstain from. Motion passes. Approval of transfers and payment of bills. Are there any questions on those?
I got one. What is, a rack license, might be a Chris question. Strength training certification, what is that? You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, RAC is the program that we use in the weight room to do our interval training.
Okay, it's not a coach, it reads like a coaching certification on the back.
No.
That's why I like,
It's just the program that we use.
you're buying the software?
Yeah.
Buying the right to it, that's what it
Yes.
is?
Yep.
Okay, it's the program we use to do what?
For our.
I mean, I know it's weight, but I mean like meaning, like is it sports, what is it? What are we talking about here?
It's for our weights classes.
Okay,
And they use it for our strength and conditioning training as well.
okay,
So essentially what it is, it's, so our coaches have access to lots of workouts that high schools create across the country, as well as different like trainers.
can we change it?
What's that?
Can we manipulate it
Yes.
ourselves? Like you can put your own stuff in
Yes,
it?
you can put your own stuff in there, and then.
It's a template,
Yes, and then
Okay.
it allows us to have on the screen, what the workout is, as well as a timer, and so then they have rotating stations, and so, yeah, it's a great program, that's pretty widely used.
thank you.
Well, I have a question about an item, just because it sounds interesting. What is Book Taco?
It is what?
Book Taco. Nobody.
That would be a great question for Cammie to answer, because that was expenditure through her budget.
Oh, okay.
So
Not
I
important.
will get
It
that
just sounds
information
fun.
to you if you
It's
need
not a
it.
lunch item.
Okay.
Unless we get low on food nutrition
Yeah.
services budget, and then
Start
it may be a
eating
lunch
the
item.
Okay.
The only thing I was curious about was the overpayment expenditure. There was a fairly large overpayment.
So it's interesting because we've been going back and forth with the IRS regarding the old issue from 2019. So we've been very diligent about paying all of our fees, including our quarterly, plus anything that they've assessed at the advisement of our lawyer, Chad Carricker. And with all of that said and done, even though all of that goes towards the assessment for the 29 issue, we still somehow got a refund for paying too much. And so Chad's looking into that for us, because we shouldn't get anything back as long as there's an outstanding balance. That outstanding balance is nothing from now. That outstanding balance is from the fees leveraged from our not filing the 1095Cs back in 2019. That's our ongoing IRS. Somewhere in all the confusion and paperwork, because we have requested leniency there, somehow we've been issued a refund. And so we have our lawyer trying to figure out why in the world they would do that in this circumstance. If I get an answer, when I get an answer from the IRS, I will let you know.
So it all goes back to that 2019 issue.
Yes, sir. Yeah. We're been very tight with our tax-related services with the IRS. There was, just to remind everybody, there was about, by the time we came in, there was about $90-ish thousand in fines levied against us for failure to heed late submission notices for documents related to 1095Cs, related to government health care, Obamacare at the time.
Okay. Are there any other questions about the bills? Do I have a motion to approve?
I move we approve the transfer and payment of bills.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor, please raise your right hand. All those opposed, motion passes. Okay, reports, middle and high school report. Mrs. Sussman?
Good evening. It is so nice to be back at school this week. Let me tell you, that extra week off was, I'm sure, nice for the kids, but I think even all the teachers were getting a little bit stir crazy at home, ready to get back to our students this last week. So it's been kind of a challenge getting back into a routine, but I think kids by now are getting into it and we're ready to rock and roll. I'm just praying let's not have any more weather for a while. So with our building, right now we have 116 students at the middle school. We're down one student from the last time I talked to you guys in October. At the high school, we're up 2 students, 204. We have 320 students total at the middle school and high school level, so we're holding steady. So with our culture, one thing that my leadership team was big on was we want to start recognizing students a little bit more regularly than just once a month with our 7 students who get the Wildcat of the Month. So we've started doing our Positively Amazing Wildcats. So every day teachers can nominate students for this award. We actually put on there what the teacher nominates them for. And it has just been so much fun. I do it at the end of the day every day. I bring them down, and it's neat seeing these high school and middle school students. Whenever I read what the teachers nominated them for, they don't always smile, but you can see that little grin. It's just nice knowing that they're getting recognized more on a daily basis. And then we take their picture, we give them, of course, candy, some treats, and then they get into a drawing for some stuff for the end of the week. So we're just trying to really recognize our kids that are doing a good job just on a daily basis, just being good people in our building. So we're really excited about that. Then we also we changed our Wildcat time. We're adding our club and class meetings into that time. They were doing everything after school or before school, but with so many students who are in athletics, we started looking at that piece and thought, well, trying to build up some of our clubs, we're utilizing that Wildcat time to do some of their meetings, and it's really helping with students. They're planning, getting ready for homecoming this next week. So we're really excited about that change, and it's working really, really well. I also want to give a lot of credit to our student council. They did an amazing job over the holidays, planning our holiday assembly, decorating our cafeteria. Student council did a really, really great job, and they've just done an amazing job all year, so I really appreciate them. So it's the time of the year that Mrs. Wolf and I are going to start looking at our class offerings and our schedule for next year. So we're going to do it a little bit like we did last year. We're going to survey the students kind of to see what courses they'd like to see offered, what courses they want to take, and then kind of create our schedule from there. We were able to add a lot of courses last year. We're hoping to be able to maybe add 1 or 2 this year just to get some more excitement for our students, some more variety for them. And in no way, shape, a lot of kids last year were freaking out. Is this my schedule? It is not. This is just, hey, this is what you're going to take. If you want to change it come May, not a big deal whatsoever. So we're excited about getting those plans for next year. It's just crazy thinking about that far ahead already. With instruction, you're going to hear a lot about data. So what we're doing right now is we're really looking at our map data. We're comparing it to our evaluate data that we're getting right now to see where our students were low last year, where they might be missing things this year, and really trying to coordinate that in the classroom to get those pieces in there before map testing at the end of April. So in January, we really looked at that combination of map and evaluate, which is what they're using now to test, to see what they're missing at the same point. We also created some SMART goals starting this week with my team meetings to decide, okay, what are the 1 or 2 things they really need to work on in these next 4 weeks? And I put it in here that SMART goal just means it's specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. Because a lot of times we set goals, we don't have a time limit, so we're gonna really focus hard on some of those goals for that data. And then in your board packet, you have the evaluate data from the last few months. Remember that the August, October, and December are all the same test, and then the September and November are a different test. So whenever you're looking at those scores, it kind of tests different standards on each one. All of our areas are growing, which is really, really exciting. Our math isn't growing quite as much as I want it to, but those are some conversations that we're gonna have in the next month to see what we can do to keep building onto that. Then we are excited this week, our instructional coaches started this week. They were both in the building at some point. They started visiting classrooms and we were really excited. They did a survey to see what teachers might need, if they want them to come to their classroom. The response was actually overwhelming and the coaches were like, oh my goodness, we're gonna have to work on a schedule so that we can hit everybody that wants us in their classroom. So it was really great, so we're excited to see what that's gonna look like and start getting our teachers that extra support they need. And then we also had some reading specialists from Mizzou that came in before Christmas. They're gonna do some work with our reading teachers in the next couple months, as well as do some PD for us with all of our staff to see if we can build some of our reading skills at the middle school and high school level. So we have a lot of stuff going on with instruction right now, so I'm excited to get to that testing time to let the kids show what they know. So do you guys have any questions for me?
I do have one.
All right.
So with the instructional coach requests, how many of them were in line with what you discovered in your most recent data between evaluate and map and kind of laying out your SMART goals for the spring? Like, are you seeing any alignment? What I'm looking for is pull that in an area I'm working on, not just any area, but a pointed focus, which is instruction for us. Man, this is really where I want to support and I want to grow. Any alignment there? Or?
There was some, and a lot of teachers, they were just like, some didn't even know something specific they wanted, but they were just very open to say, hey, will you just come into my classroom and see if I'm doing everything I should be, see if I'm missing anything. So that was a lot of it. Some teachers wanted to add more engagement. Some just were curious about our certain technology tools. So it was kind of a variety of all kinds of stuff. But I know that one focus that we have told our instructional coaches is MAP and EOCs are definitely one of our focuses for the semester. So as they're in the classroom, to keep an eyeball on those kind of things.
On that survey they did, Erin, have they gotten those results back to you already?
Do how many people want to actually do the instructional coaching?
Right, the one that they,
So they didn't share it with us. The way that the instructional coaches, they're just gonna keep it to themselves, but they told us that almost half of our staff wanted them to come in and do something. So, but what I want them to do is give me a list of kind of, did they want engagement, did they want this, did they want that? Because we want this to be more of they're helping the teachers versus a evaluation piece. So we want them to only come to us if you need goals, those kind of things. We want them to work with the teachers.
I was just thinking long-term wise, if there was something that we needed to help support them in,
Absolutely.
it'd be nice to have an idea of what those results were saying.
And I'm curious whenever they start meeting with the teachers, because like I had one teacher today that asked to see an instructional coach. She said, I just want you to come in and see what I'm doing in the classroom. Well, the instructional coach said, well, I'd like to have, like a goal that she wants. So I'd like to see like when they start meeting one-on-one with these teachers, what are the things that they want? Because back in the beginning of January, they're like, ooh, an instructional coach, this is something new. But once they start meeting with them, it might be a totally different focus. So I'm curious, come about, April, to have those coaches write down everything that these teachers have wanted to work on to see where our focus could go from there. Because
Also, help guide us with our PD selection when we go through PD planning
Exactly.
too. If that's what they're telling us that they need, that would be really helpful.
Exactly, and some of our exchange days for the summer, we can use some of those ideas to plug in there, see if we can find some presenters to help them out. So I'm just excited with all the possibilities with these instructional coaches.
I have a comment and I guess a question. My comment is, I'm glad that I like that you're using Wildcat time for some of these club meetings, just because hopefully that will get some additional engagement with the kids and encourage them to be involved in some of the clubs, because I feel like if you push the club meetings exclusively before and after school, you're not gonna get some of those kids, so I think that that's good. And then additionally, I guess the enrollment numbers that you had at the top, is that from this week?
That is from this last week,
Okay.
yes. Or actually, I think I pulled these like the Friday before we came back. So, and we haven't had anybody enroll since then.
Okay, and so that is also less like the students that graduated early, or do we count those?
Yes, so the students who graduated early should be taken out of that number
Okay.
right now, because as of December, they went ahead and took them all out of our rolls.
Okay, I was gonna say, without those, our high school number seems small, but, I mean, I guess that's where that is when you take out the early graduates and everything.
Yes,
But-
yeah, it did go, and it did go down since the beginning of the school year because of that.
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you.
Well, thank you guys.
I have a question.
Yes.
Will you, in the offerings, I think we talked about this last year, geography, considering the world we live in today, but, you know, put that up and see if the kids would be interested in that.
Absolutely, because I think, to me, geography would be a very interesting class to take, and that could be one of those elective history classes that they
Right.
could choose to enjoy.
Right.
Absolutely. No, and that is one thing, area we're looking at is history. We want to see how many more history classes we can offer, just things that students are going to enjoy.
Yeah, I mean, that's absolutely to make sure that, you know, that will count, you know, if it's academically with scholarships and that kind of thing. too.
Yes, exactly, exactly. No, I love that one too.
Facilities report, Mr. Wilson?
Good evening, everyone. Everything seems to be going pretty good. Staffing's good. We're just working on general maintenance and repairs as things come up, and then doing preventative maintenance, trying to keep everything from coming up. Shop equipment's in good shape. A few minor HVAC issues in the high school, mainly just the age of the coils and some just minor leaks, you know, that's just getting some age on it. Nothing catastrophic. We did receive our reimbursement for the lead testing. That was around $2,800, I do believe. Then we move on to the HVAC in the elementary, the VRV. We lost 2 more compressors. That ended up being, and also a board that went bad in that same unit. So that was it was over break. They ended up putting those in. The compressors that they sent were no good out of the box. So they didn't charge us for any of that, of course, but we had to wait for another 2 compressors to come in, change it all back out. Now everything's back online. But there is something that came up. They were wanting us to do a coil flush, which is an every 7-year process on these VRVs. And I don't even want to tell you the price on that one.
Go ahead, we need to.
All right. That is something that they're going to require us to do if they're going to warranty anything else on this, all the compressors. And Daikin will not warranty anything else on the compressors unless we do this 7-year maintenance. It's $58,895.
My gosh.
And that happens over the course of 1 week. It's a 9-person crew that comes in and they work on it in the evenings, and they strip every one of the, you don't see them in here, but you'll see the package units that are in every room. They take that all apart and they have to put like a tarp around it and work inside that and rip everything out and flush all that out. It's something they have to do. There's a special kit that they bring. There's 3 of those. They bring 3 kits for those crews to run. Oh, yeah. That's $58,000, and then after that, same PMI, which we have to use because it is a Daikin system. They're the only ones that can service it. They can get the parts and such. The maintenance agreement they want us to do to stay in compliance and get, you know, where we're not, they want to keep our warranty going. And that is a quarterly service check that comes in. They shall hook up their computer, which I can't do. You can't see nothing on this machine, these machines without a computer. That is something they won't share. It's software, you know, they have to do it. And that is $36,720.
Tell them the
Okay.
next part. Is that a year or quarterly?
That's quarterly, they just come in quarterly. The only thing else that gets us is anything that they come into that is like a perishable item on there, which might need to be changed out, like if a filter's cracked or something, we'll get that for free. But if they find something like a bad board or a bad BS box, like we had a problem with, we pay almost full price, we get a 20% discount if we take this agreement. I just wanted to let you guys know the total spent on service for this year. Yeah, up until this date, I just got the last invoice a couple days ago for that 2 compressor switch out, which is actually already had to replace the other compressor. There's 3 compressors in each unit. I had to replace the first one at the beginning of the year. So they're all new compressors in one unit. $48,876.91 this year so far. That's most of my budget on just those VRVs. So that's why I don't like those guys.
So to make sure I understand, we are limited to using them because they're the only ones who can get those parts for
They're
their.
TMI, which is a Daikin, they service Daikins.
Mhm.
But they're not the
ones.
only people around that service them.
Rehagen is a licensed Daikin service, but they don't even have the service checker boxes. They can come in and basically guess, but they don't have the actual service line.
The proprietary.
I think we started with Rehagen
Mhm.
when this installation started.
They did the repiping,
Okay. I knew they did some portion of it.
which then,
We're in this predicament also. What he's talking about is kind of like a diagnostic scanner they put your vehicle on. Rehagen can't access, they can repair, but they have to do it without the advantage of being able to access the proprietary
what
software.
I could probably do is get TMI to come down here and diagnose the problem. They have to get their parts from TMI. So TMI would sell Rehagen their parts and they could probably do the service. That's about it.
I mean, is this something we could put out for bid to get like a different
I don't know.
contractor in?
We
That's,
could.
I could
I
try.
mean,
to
it
see
seems
if
like
they-
they're really putting us up against a wall.
It's going to, any TMI or any Daikin, it's all I can't talk today.
Proprietary.
Proprietary. Everything is, it's gonna be about the same.
It'll probably be the same or more for this area or this.
TMI is our closest.
TMI is our closest, and they're not really that far out of line with any other service provider, so any other service provider is still gonna charge us relatively the same, plus the cost to carry the distance to us. And so we're in about as good a position as we can. And a particular relevant, or point here is that we have about a $70,000 budget, $35,000 of which is just dedicated to the elementary. Of that 48,000, that's all 48,000 here at the elementary.
Just elementary. I broke it
So
down
we've
just the
expended
elementary.
that, just, you
That
can't
doesn't include all
anticipate
the
this
little
stuff.
stuff here
We
and
do
there.
have some repair in there, that's what the 35,000 is. But we'll be making a decision and having a discussion here shortly about the bond and about, and the HVAC system for over on the new wing. Again, I want you to know these numbers, and the reason that I went ahead and provided you with the total cost for electricity. One major difference in a Daikin system is up front, it is a little bit cheaper to install it. It's on the service side that it's very expensive. And it is that VRV system is more efficient than a traditional. But even if we added 25% to our electric costs, even a less efficient system won't put us in this predicament. And so really consider that with our conversation here coming in a few minutes with the bidding, the bond options, and the HVAC. We're in a tough spot in that regard. And meanwhile, what have we done over at the high school's 20-year system this year?
Oh, I had to charge 4 of them, they were just low on refrigerant, and last year I replaced a compressor.
Estimated average for the last 2 years? So, I know I'm putting you on the spot.
2,500, 3,000.
It's way better.
It is.
Hmm.
It's really put us in a, we'll be fine. Our reserves are good and we're fine, but it has been definitely a difficult year. Keep in mind that the first 7 years prior to Cliff's arrival, we change out the filters for those Daikin units quarterly, which is what you're supposed to do. They were never changed from the moment they were installed to the moment that he changed
I
them
can't
for the
say
first
that.
time.
It never, but the way I found them, yeah, it took forever just to get one filter, because you take them apart and you clean the filter, you put it back in. It hadn't been done for a while. which
I can
puts
tell
us
you,
in
we
this-
had ordered nothing to do that service in our budget for the previous 7 years also. So in my point there being, is we can anticipate some additional repair costs there just due to poor maintenance over time and the significant cost associated with the VRV and Daikin system.
Yeah, and sometimes we do check and see, and we even clean those filters more. If, you can look up and see if they're dirty and go, oh, well, maybe we need to knock it out sooner, because I don't want this to fail, because dirt getting in those coils is what that $58,000 comes down to over those years. Now, they did say that if it's kept up on like we are doing now, we might get 8 years, 9 years before we need us cleaning, you know. That's
Will they
best
check
case
it? It's not
scenario.
like automatically once every 7 years?
It'll go by, well, that's.
Didn't you say they
another reason.
recommended once every 7 years to get the flush or
Recommended.
whatever? Like,
But with that maintenance agreement that they want us to get,
sounds like we're just hitting the flush at the wrong time when we're having a significant expense otherwise. You know, we'd have had it anyway, right? Way I'm understanding what you're saying, like.
The flush eventually.
the flush.
Yeah, right,
eventually.
like that'd have been, okay.
Just the cost of maintaining those, about $8,500 a
Yeah,
year on
that's just something
average.
that I am just hearing about in the last, well, they mentioned it to us one time earlier about this might be a good idea, but now that we're losing all these compressors, they're pushing it because now Daikin's not wanting the warranty anymore compressors. So we're gonna either have to do that or start eating the money on 3 or 4 compressors every, hopefully that's it every year.
And honestly too, guys, I'm not sure what the conversation was. Most folks that go to the Daikin, it is cheaper to install. So when you're doing your bond projects, it's gonna look great on paper because you're not running all that duct work, you're not having to run lines, so many lines. But in the end, this is where it gets you.
I've spoken to, I went to school for HVAC, that was a long time ago. This stuff is a little bit out of my league. I'll be the first to admit it, because without that computer, you can't check a pressure, you can't check superheat, you can't do anything because there's no ports for that. It's all sensors. So they hook their special box in there, interface it in, and they can see everything. I can't tell if it's out of refrigerant or not. I can guess, because if that coil freezes up, I can be like, you know, that's probably low on refrigerant, but I can't tell for sure. And then once you put your refrigerant on it, you can't tell how much you're putting in it if you wanted to, because you have to have that computer to tell you when you get to your point. Instead of, like in the old school, instead of gauges and jump a contactor over to make it run, it doesn't work anymore. And I've talked to a lot of people I know in the industry, and even some people that work with Daikin, saying people are ripping them out. So I would suggest not putting them in.
Yeah.
If people are actually going, hey, this is killing us, we're ripping them out.
Okay.
That's about all I got. Everything else, things going all right. Besides
Need
all
more
that-
salt.
Yeah, I had to order more salt. But
What's the new kitchen equipment in your report?
new kitchen equipment's all in except for there's 2,
Well, what was it?
oh, we have those 2 new cold bars that have been installed, and you've got a new freezer, upright freezer, 3-door, and upright cooler, 3-door. Those other ones were getting quite old. Did fix one of them, but the other one's no good. So, but I think they've been here since the building's been here. So Kelly got that through some of the money she had. So just got that installed, but there's 2 more ovens to go, which is gonna require a little bit of wiring. But we're discussing that, trying to see if it's gonna be something I do in-house, or if it's gonna be something that we contract out.
As far as the food and nutrition budget, this is a couple of years old, and it's only gotten worse since Kelly's been here, in a good way. We are carrying far too high of a balance. It's out of compliance with DESI. We're only allowed to carry so much of our operating balance in our food and nutrition count. This is money we had to spend and was in accordance with our plan from 18 years ago, or 18 months ago, to address our too out of compliance budget. So we just spent the money they were forcing us to. That, and in combination with better and more food for our kids, we're spending that money down.
And getting some much needed newer equipment.
Yeah.
We got new kitchen, like pots and pans, they were old, and we got some nice new stuff.
Good.
So was this original when they built the high school, the equipment that you're replacing?
As far as we know.
Well,
Or did
high
some of it
school-
come over?
The high school is original, and so this is, the diving system's DRV, so. we
Right,
take that
that's-
in elementary.
You're talking kitchen equipment?
Kitchen equipment
Oh,
was what I
kitchen
was
equipment.
thinking,
Yeah.
with that,
Yeah, the kitchen equipment is.
but it's not the elementary already, is it?
No.
Okay.
It's not old, the high school.
I don't know, I was on the school board with elementary.
That all still works just fine.
Okay.
Thank you.
But that's about all I got. Just something to consider would be, and then I know we're in a predicament with these already, because they're here. But
Mhm.
thanks, guys.
Thank you. Superintendent's report.
Awesome. I'll just touch on the highlights. You guys have my report. I did want to make sure and shout out to Joe Nooner from Rudolph Bus Company, Travis Greer. They really helped us out by chipping out all the ice. We had a couple skid steers on campus, a beautiful John Deere machine from Mr. Neuner to help us actually clear off the parking lots that Saturday. Took us about 6 hours on Saturday. 2 skid steers, plow truck, and Joe's big piece of equipment, and then one or the other of us with a shovel in their hand trying to move stuff. I really appreciated the help. And I appreciate all the support, got a lot of good feedback from families. I appreciate that. We're planning some spring events just to help us with our climate, because we're gonna be working hard through the spring. I think some key and positive indicators are the pull that we're seeing with the instructional coaches. I think a very healthy place to be in as a professional is just understanding that you can be better tomorrow than you were today. And I wish I was a little bit better today than what I came in as, but I know I'm a little bit better for tomorrow, and I'll have the same expectation. I think it's a very positive thing in combination with what's happening in the elementary. Personnel and staffing, we'll be interviewing an ELA applicant next week, as well as doing the admin assistant interviews in January. About this time of year, probably the end of February or so, we're gonna post some general vacancies. We have no idea that anybody is leaving at this time, but you just wanna get ahead. I know Aaron and the principals send out a, hey, we don't wanna lose you, but if you plan on going somewhere else, if you'd let us know so we can be prepared. I'll attend music training the end of this month, which is for insurance. I'll have some questions about our 35-ish% increase there. And I also anticipate, we have our OSBA benefits meeting on the 29th. I'm anticipating a slight increase there. Hard for me to complain considering they've given us no increase since I've been here, but that'll impact our budget to some degree. I think you got an idea of what we're doing with our professional development through the spring, as well as facilities. Athletics and fine arts, the main and key point there is we're gonna move forward with our co-op with St. George for middle school track. I feel like you guys were in support of that. It'll only be a benefit with little to no cost for us, and I think it's a goodwill thing as well. We get kids involved running track, drink the wild cake Kool-Aid just as quick as we can. Also, Mr. Minix, as we exit winter sports and head into spring, you'll get another report from him. But if you had any questions, he is available. I just didn't have a report due for him. We're trying to kind of aim those at the end and the beginning, between the seasons. My largest area is the one I'm most concerned about. This is budget planning season, so a couple of things are coming into play. State budget, we've got a new governor. There'll be an impact there. I'll be meeting with area superintendents tomorrow, and then we'll have some of our MASSA conferences. I'll get a little bit more information there. I don't have our prediction on assessed valuation from the county, but neither does R1 and R3. We're all keenly interested. This is a reassessment year, but typically in Osage County, the only AV increases that we typically experience are new construction coming onto rolls, home sales or property sales, because they register a new sale price. And then, darn it, I'm forgetting the last one. Something else relatively small. So I'll be looking for those figures so that I can use those as our baseline guide. You already know our maintenance budgets are exceeding projections. Wanted to repeat this one more time. It's been included in October, November, and December. My main goal is salaries and benefits for our staff. Someone asked me this question out in the community the other day. They said, well, Bob, if we pay them more, does that mean they're immediately going to be better at whatever their job is? And the answer to that is no. There's nothing magic that happens with the salary. But it does change things over time. People feel appreciated. That is a climate booster. People feel like they're being treated as a professional. That is a culture booster. Over time, we'll attract and retain higher and higher top tier staff across the board. And so I think that should continue to be a priority, not until we get to the new minimum of 40,000. But I would love to see us place ourselves in a premier position where when people look at our salary schedule and look at our reputation, they consider us first. Honestly, that's what I'm going for. And that will have a trickle-down effect over the year, and I've included some figures for you guys there. With kind of what I've did the last 2 years, of course we're going to do STEP. It would be highway robbery not to do STEP. I do not anticipate a large assessed valuation increase for us. I don't know that our attendance is going to skyrocket in any way. I do not know how the state budget is going to make it through appropriations. I don't know what the condition of that is going to be in. We have not fully funded the formula this year, 1 year after increasing the formula to 6760 from 6375. We're not paying all of that 1 year after the legislation goes through. We do have another jump next year, but we're already not paying what we promised the year before. And so I'm going to be very conservative there. My goal there is to add as much to the base salary as possible. We have some options with our benefits package. If there is a 3% increase, it's kind of the same every year. We can take care of it. We can have the staff take care of it, or we can pay part of the increase. My goal is that we don't pass along that cost to staff. Insurance already costs a lot for them. And so I'd like to put them in a position where any increase, we shelter them from that. So that's my major goal going in. Our equipment budget and our program budgets look pretty good. We've made some progress there. But again, my focus is going to be adding to the base salary. But I also want to be clear, there is no way, I was really hoping to make another at least significant leap towards 40,000. I'd love to get to say 38.5 and then do the next 1,500 the year after. Because that was my goal in my interview. I don't know if you recall, that was within 5 years we get us to 40,000, and that was long before the state thought of their 38,000. But we cannot do that on our current revenues. We can't. And our only variable option that we can control is that operating levy. And I've given you some figures to consider there. Having said that, we need to make a decision by January 28th. if that is of interest to us, because that's when any election resolution would be due.
You mean to put it on the ballot in
For April,
April?
To raise the operating levy?
to raise the operating levy.
So is that always, this is me thinking out loud, but is that always done in April, or
No, we
what
could
is
do
the
it
difference about different ballot times?
a little bit different, the simple majority versus 2/3 majority.
August 2/3?
Yes, if you do it in the, because they want to align the lower gate for the highest voter turnout. So what they think is, well, if you do it at certain times, you're more likely to be at the polls. So if you do it in that Super Tuesday in April, you're more likely to go, so there's the difference in thresholds. Important there, we could do it in the fall, but I can't make a budget for next year that counts on a vote, because our people will start the year, let's just say we did, said 40,000. Well, if it's voted down, we're still on the hook for 40,000.
Yeah.
And that would be the equivalent, of about 6 or 7% swing in our fund balance to handle that.
What are we, like 32-ish?
We'll end this year because of maintenance, not because of Cliff, but because, we'll end around 30 and a half.
No, it's because of Cliff. Let's just say it. Anyway, just kidding. I guess this is, Neil, I'm just kidding on that. Like, it's not, go ahead.
That's a big step. We would be relying on something, because now we're running a massive deficit budget. So we would still be above kind of the gold standard of DESI, that 20%. However, we would be headed south, and we would be headed for trouble. And so I would not recommend that. The safer option would be to run an April election and
There's only
plan.
one election this year anyway.
Right, true.
April.
Well, we could put something on, nothing else would be running in November, which is why the higher 2/3 threshold.
Right.
So we could
Cost
do
that much, the district would cost that much more.
Right, we would, that's another great point. Right now, if we run that, everybody around us is running school board elections and bond and levy elections, so we all share the cost equally. If we would run alone in November, we would bear the sole, maybe the sole cost of an entire election, and that wouldn't be in our best interest that way. It's a lot to think about. I've given you I think it was December, at a minimum, just barely get by.
This is-
I think the figures would be about within $1,000 of raising to 40 and decompressing would be 30 cents. That for a $200,000 homeowner would be about $9.50 a month. One of your cheaper meals at McDonald's. For a category, I forget the category of ag, but if you have 640 acres, it too would be about $3.97 a month per 30 cents of evaluation. Nothing backbreaking, but with our public, every penny counts for families. I completely understand that. It's still one McDonald's meal. But it is something that I think is worth consideration. Nope, I'm not in favor of raising taxes in general. That's not a platform that I would like to reside on. But we do have to make a decision one way or another, whether we want to see that vision and go through. And this is definitely a decision point.
I'm a little worried about the compression that is resulting in the minimum salary. How many years is it taking for, so like if you
6
start.
years.
6 years, so you start out as a new teacher. I mean, I was talking to someone in the community about it today, and I was like, so for those 6 years, if I worked somewhere and didn't receive a raise, I would not like that. And I realized that this minimum salary was not something that, I mean, I guess you could say we chose it because we jumped in with this program with the state to do it, but when many of the neighboring school districts are doing it as well, it kind of forces our hand. And additionally, with inflation and everything, I mean, I think I wish we could pay the teachers way more than that. it bothers me that we have our salary schedule compressed, and I think that we need to address that in some way.
Something I didn't include for you guys, but I just ran some crude numbers. So our neighbors, it's a good school, but I found it was a good school. They're at 411, which is, but they're assessed about $4.11 total valuation, so 31 cents more than we are. But their assessed valuation is about 135 million. Ours is 84 million. So their assessed evaluation is 55% larger than ours. So if, again, these are crude numbers, if our rates were the same, they would still receive 55% more local funds than we do.
You're saying if we were at 411 as well?
Yeah, if we were at 411 as well, they would still receive, because that's based on per $100 of evaluation, right? But here's where I'll backtrack a little bit. We have 25% fewer students than them. So it's not a straight 55% comparison. But when you reduce what that operating levy would be, so if we just did 55%, our total levy would need to be $5.89 from $3.80, so $1.19. But we have 25% fewer students, so 75% of that would put us at $4.41 to have the equivalent per student funding as what our neighbor Westphalia does. Now, Chamois is quite a bit higher. They're at 532, I believe, but they have a significantly smaller population. They have about a $30 million AB, if I'm remembering correctly. I didn't run those numbers because they are a bit of an anomaly, which means that at 441, it would take 61.75 cents to increase in levy. So we would only be making up half of the gap between our very good neighboring school district, just to have the same per student local revenue. If we did all of that, that would actually be $512,400 per year. And it'll cost us about $300 to do the $40,000 base salary, right around that 300 mark, and decompress across the board. Because all of our hourlies are based on salary. And we do have some choices there. We could choose to reduce the formula of hourly when compared. I would also argue that, our hourly folks, we probably need to do some equivalent adjustments there, although I think we're reasonably good there. I would talk to my folks to really get a gauge of, Kelly, what are other people seeing in other districts? And I could pull some pay schedules as well. But 30 cents will get us about half of that 260. So we'd be right around in a sustainable, although barely, way, barely being able to make the 40 move to 40.
One of the things that does set some schools apart from most schools too is career ladder, providing up to $5,000 for 8 years teacher. That's a pretty good bump on top of what we already have, and I've heard no discussion about that in years here. And,
yeah, we haven't done it for years.
And that's something that I don't know if the rest of the board member knows what it is. How much are we reimbursed for that? We pay what, 60 or 40% of that?
You know what? I'd have to look at.
I think it's 40, and the state pays 60, I believe. And so your first year, it's 1,000, and then after 3 years, I think it becomes like 3,000. After 7 or 8 years, it becomes 5,000. So not only are they getting their regular salary, they can do up to 120 hours of extra outside of contract time, which can be everything from tutoring, all kinds of things to help our kids. And it provides a little bit of a bump for a serious bump for a lot of districts. When we're just comparing salaries, we got to look at other things like that also.
Fatima does career ladder also.
So it's more than just base salary, it's another
Right.
$5,000 on top
We're
of
even
it.
more behind. We could add, I think we had talked maybe 2 months ago, career ladder will be something that we apply for and be a part of our budget
brought it up.
strategy.
That'd be good too.
It's a lot to take in. if we should decide that we're interested in that, a bond resolution would need to be approved, and it would require a special board meeting so that we could submit those documents before January 28th, which is not next Tuesday, it's the week after.
Okay. Kind of snuck up on me.
It's fast.
Yeah. Okay. I guess moving on to discussion items.
I'll try. I know that was probably longer than you guys were thinking. We might talk about the other. Bond, we opened our bidding process today. We met with at least 7 general contractors, which is an excellent turnout for a project of our size. And we had a total of 33 individual contractors, both subcontractors and general contractors, show up today, walk through. We'll be opening that bidding process. Second week of February, we'll be opening bids. That'll be a public thing. That'll be right here. I'll send you guys an invitation if you'd like. And then we will be selecting our general contractor at the February 20th meeting. One of those bids is gonna be relevant to the HVAC. So here's what I've done for us in collaboration with Dr. Strong. We will have bid day alternates. And here's what that means. You'll see they're gonna submit a figure that includes a Daikin system, a more traditional but still VRB, variable valve system, and then a traditional system similar to what's on the high school. So you're gonna see those 3 options in dollar amounts. The more traditional VRV is still a Daikin system. It's still variable compressors, still some proprietary things in there. I was hoping John was gonna be here because he really is. Between him and Cliff, they could probably give a class on this stuff. But we're gonna see those bid day alternates, be prepared for those. But we will be doing selecting a general contractor next month. Also, in addition with that, we walked through with our PTO president, Matt McCoy, and playground equipment provider, Little Tykes Commercial, Cammie Higginbotham, our elementary principal, and Mr. Wilson, as well as our Navigate rep, to talk about our options for our playground equipment. That is something that will be accelerating, will be boots on the ground, and our kids should be enjoying a whole new playground up top there to replace what was moved from the other school by the beginning of next school year. To refresh your memories, that was a project that was actually a fundraising. PTO was going to put in the smaller elementary playground. They did. They raised a lot of money for that, tens of thousands of dollars. They were going to raise about 85 to 100 to do this. We made it part of this bond. Very expensive to do those things. So that is one of our projects that will be moving forward and will be the first tangible thing that we're actually able to deliver on this bond. And Cammie promised she's gonna make it a memorable event for our kids to get to be the first ones to play on the playground. Much more expensive than I thought, honestly. Oh, question for you, and this just came up today. Are we against, it is very common when this happens, for old playgrounds to be donated, say to a local church or something like that? Are you guys against us putting that out there if, hey, at this time, if you can manage to remove it in this window, local church, hopefully nonprofit could have it?
I was gonna say, this came up with the city playground equipment, but, I think the concern is that you have to have like you may wanna draft up a legal document so that you're not liable for any kind of injury or anything that happens after the playground gets donated or purchased from another, because I think there were some cases where people got sued because of something defective that happened after the playground equipment moved, so I think that was one of the deciding factors for the city equipment. And or
Good
lead
idea.
testing was brought up too. I don't think ours would have that problem, but just a disclaimer, some kind of draft up document that you might wanna put together if you're gonna do something like that.
I would have our attorney do that. It'll
Yeah.
cost us about $150 for the
Right,
good
but just
deed.
to cover
I
you
think it's
for
kind of worth it if you guys are.
liability reasons.
Yeah.
I'll pay for it.
I think that given that our equipment is in need of replacement because of its age, and the fact that, I would say the only way we get rid of it is if someone is willing to sign
Yeah.
some sort of waiver, because I think it's kind of at the end of its life, but someone may, one person's trash is another person's treasure, so what do I know? They better sign something.
Gotcha. Awesome. Thank you.
Calendar,
This is that season. We'll be looking at our first draft next month. I included some details in your board summary. Minimum 1,044 hours in the school year. I did give you some background there, and I've gotten a lot of calls about this. How many of these days are we gonna be making up? Technically, because we build in 60 or more hours, we don't have to make up a single day, according to DESI. But we also lose the money for that day, so we lose our ADA for that day also. But we'll be building in the additional 60 hours again for next year. We're gonna send out and get some feedback. Principals have already started asking the teachers. Cliff has been asking his folks, hey, what did you like about this calendar? What did you not like about this calendar? We'll be putting those details and preferences together and submitting a first draft calendar next month. Is there anything that you guys really liked a lot or just really hated?
How does one build in 60 hours?
You just add 60 hours, divide that by 60 hours. So it would be 1,104 minutes times 60 minutes. Each of our days constitutes 456 minutes. You divide it out, it tells you how many days that you have to be in session in order to accrue those minutes. And then we count from the first day of school all the way until we accumulate all of those minutes, and that tells us what our last day of school has to be with the 60 hours in there. And it's generally, we've kind of floated between 1,104 and 1,115 hours.
Oh, so it's just on the, I see what you mean, like, it's just on the calendar.
Yep.
As a day would be in session anyway, and like if you do not, we can get out earlier than that. It can be adjusted then, if we have like no snow days.
Not
that the way it
without
works?
DESI's approval.
Okay.
Yeah, that's kind of the catch, is if you don't use them, you still have to be in school for that amount of time. Now, if you were to ask DESI for an exception and say, hey, we really need to be out of school for this reason, the first thing they're gonna look is, do you have the requisite 1,044 hours to constitute? Was this predictable, or are you just trying to?
Yeah, no, I get it.
They might consider it, but it's kind of like, I would love, you can't, I talked about this a couple years ago, naive a little bit. What about a sunshine day? If you don't use any of these days, and maybe you've had a cold winter but not a snowy winter, and your staff and your students could use a break. It's more complicated than that. You've got to go to DESI, and you have to jump through some hoops to get that approved.
Yeah, just curious about the building in hours versus building in days. Because now it's hours, with
Yes,
days
sir.
at some point, not too long ago. I don't think.
They're leaning back towards days, and that's where you're seeing yeah.
When we get
that's
used to this, they better
Yeah.
change it up, I mean,
Yeah.
right.
And there's some big, MSIP bumps for having enough days, and there's some. broken
That's right,
buildings.
169 days is the
Yeah.
mark now, yeah.
Yeah, we used to have 174 minimum.
Which, since I've been in Missouri, I've enjoyed that because it's generally 190 to 195 in Texas. And so I've always thought, wow, Missouri, we're hardly in school at all. Your year is so short. It was mid to second week of August to second week of June. And so it's kind of almost felt part-time for the last 2 years.
Okay.
If you think of anything regarding the calendar, just shoot me an email, a call, or a text. We're gonna put that together with what our staff prefers and what we can use to meet our goals, and that'd be I don't think it's gonna change a lot. Am I wrong there, guys? I don't think there's gonna be a lot of changes. All right?
Okay, policy regulation 0411.
All right, that is the regulation regarding board agenda procedures. So when I came in, you know, you're kind of drinking from a water fountain there to a degree. And so I just asked kind of like, hey, how do we do that? And so the way that we did that and had been doing it is the way you guys experience it now. You know, when we had it on Tuesday though, because we were out Mondays, that meant 2 business days would be the Thursday before, and that's why you got it the Thursday. Well, Mr. Peterson asked some good questions about how to get stuff on there, so I just review the policy. It was very antiquated. For instance, and I put this in my report, it said that we would mail them out 4 days ahead of time. Ask a couple folks, including Elaine Deacon, who's been here for a long time, and she said, well, yeah, we used to mail them, so it took a couple days for them to get the materials in the mail, and so that's why it said 4 days, or at least that's what she believed. And so I've offered a couple of suggestions in there. Most districts at a minimum do 2 business days. There was 5 days to get something on the agenda. Honestly, you know, I'm good with the day of, as long as we vote to amend the agenda. I would prefer to avoid that just because our community looks at the agenda and to see what's on it. So I think 3 days, if you get 3 days.
Prior was 5 days, 4 days to have the board packet out. So if you're gonna have the board packet out in 48 hours, 2 days, 3 days would make it the same amount of time. 1 day before it's due.
Right, gotcha. So I think that, and that 3rd day means it's the Friday beforehand, if we count it as a business day. So it really does give you quite a bit of time to add things to agenda. And then up to that, inside that 48-hour window, we can always amend. I would just like to not do that very much because people might miss a chance to come talk to us about what's on there. Saw something from Jamie earlier, and I read it while I was sitting here, about superintendent or designee versus president. And you brought up a good point. If you look at Regulation 321, the vice president is the president in the president's absence. So we already have one kind of backup. But what would y'all think about superintendent, board president, or board secretary? And you could call whoever's the board secretary at that time and say, hey, I'm recommending this for the agenda as an alternate option. Are you guys comfortable with that?
I'm fine with that. I just
No.
was wanting there to be an alternative should the board president be out like Sean is right now, and us be
Right.
limited to who we could go to for submitting a request.
Gotcha.
Vice president would be fine. I think that's his role, and the president is not present.
If you don't like the way it's written, just shoot me an email or a text that said, hey, I'd like to recommend this. And in the next board meeting, when we do our first reading, I'll include that as an alternate language. And so that way we can do a second reading all at the same time.
Sounds good. Next item, AMI.
Relevant to snow days, obviously, we haven't had much of a need for them. AMI is alternate methods of instruction or virtual learning, distance learning. We don't have 4 days off in a row very often. That 60 hours equates to a little over 7 days built into the schedule. Now, I would argue even those 7.25 days are important. But as I explained in my summary, some snow days maybe just need to be snow days, let kids be kids. However, I think I'm speaking out of both sides of my mouth. If I make every snow day a plain old snow day, even the ones that go on 2, 3, or 4 days, without some sort of alternate plan for learning. And if we're gonna say we're real serious about those goals, then as much as I hate to be the Grinch for our kids and maybe even our staff a little bit there, we have done AMI before. I think 2 people would have participated in that. We have a plan in place, although we'd have to dust it off. And we would need to do a refresher with student, staff, and parents. But kind of what I would like from you guys is some community representation on, I really feel like if we've built in 7.5, we don't want to give it up, but that means on the 8th day, Bob, we think it's reasonable that would begin AMI. Now, if with some degree of flexibility, this would be in our handbook, not in policy. because we would add it to our handbook. And then we would run our AMI plan. What I would really like for them and for our community is some predictability in that. You can expect AMI, not at any time, but about the time where we've missed this much instruction, we feel like that's significant, and we should plan to have it. Now, if we have an event that freezes over, it starts at 3, freezes the roads over, and by 11:30 a.m. it's gonna be off, but we just couldn't have school because we can't run buses, probably not gonna do AMI on that day. We're gonna be right back the next day, and we're limited to 36 hours. You know, we can't just do AMI forever under current circumstance. What are your thoughts?
I'll speak for, as a parent of a kid who goes to St. George, I do have to say that was one thing that I did somewhat appreciate for my older child, in the sense that they did send them home with homework and told them, we will let you know if there will be an AMI day. So don't do the homework yet, but please be aware, you know, we're expecting some heavy snow. If it becomes that extreme, you know, they're gonna implement it, and they did. And so for my 8th grader, who's very independent, it was great. She was in there doing her math, getting her stuff done. Like, I felt very confident, and truthfully, it felt like my high schooler probably could have been doing some stuff from his Chromebook as well. But he didn't have that option going to this school. I do worry for the younger age kids, and so maybe that might be a question for Ms. Higginbotham. Like, I don't know how much support they would have doing homework from home. You know, we expect a little more out of our older kids, middle schoolers, high schoolers. They should be already working somewhat independently, but I don't know how we could put that on the little ones. I don't know.
I've seen it done a couple different ways, and it works very well. As long as the kids know what's going on, parents know what's going on, we usually send out, the administration will send out information, usually leading up to it too, that it could be something we do. I've seen everything done from Google Classroom or one-to-one, so you already have something in place for that. But not all kids can get a hold of, you know, they don't have hotspots, they don't have places, so sometimes the storms will take and cause problems. So we've also I've seen it offered as a packet for students that say they know they can't get on the computer at home. So there was an alternative there. Some of the schools are doing just full-blown packets. You just take them home, and we'll basically tell you what you need to do. The kids do them. A lot of the kids do them. Also, another option is if they complete the work, we can count it. The teacher can go in and count them as present, even if it's done afterwards. So they still, mark them all absent. You start taking them off as they turn in the AMI work. So we still get to count them as being present that way.
That is
So there's a bunch of different ways of doing this, and it can work, but you have to have the system in place, and everybody's got to understand it.
Yep.
I wish after 60 hours, we just make the day up. You say at Lynn, you think the majority of the kids did that work during COVID?
I'm doing it right. Oh, when I was.
Like, is that what
yeah.
you're talking about? Like,
Yeah,
That's my experience largely
I
with
lectured
this.
in my garage every day, so they were online with me, and then when they weren't online with me, yeah, they were turning in work.
okay, God bless them. Every statistic I saw is that you're not getting half of them get anything accomplished.
But if
virtual
there
wise,
is
I
a
mean, like,
grade-
it's like,
Sorry, go ahead, sorry.
no, I'm just saying, my experience with it at Jeff City was I don't think half our kids learned anything during that stretch, and I think that was a major problem. I just think it's very, very difficult to implement that with any type of consistency, with given the resources and the support and, you know, all that, and just, I think
But it's put
if
in
you have the choice, in my opinion, if we have the choice of bring them in again or do that, I want to bring them in again. That's my opinion.
if it goes in as a grade, that's one thing, the work that they're doing. And they can do that after, if for some reason they don't have it, they lost it, dog ate it, whatever, they still can do it in days following, turn it in, and then they can still be counted as present for that day. So, as a grade, I've seen a lot of students, you may get only half of them doing it the day of, but you turn around and get a lot of them turning it in the next couple days. So I feel like it works as an option. I wouldn't want to do it for more than a day or two. I think it's really good.
You probably did a better job implementing it than I did.
It's
I mean,
really-
seriously,
well,
because like, that was,
I would do things like geography and things that are reviewed that we would be using in the units that we would be covering, but not necessarily direct instruction for what we're doing right now. Like, I wouldn't give a test online unless I had to.
Well, yeah, I get it,
You
like,
know,
but I
so-
mean, I'm just
but,
saying that, like,
but
the engagement was half as much, when what my experience was.
Or less.
Or, yeah, I mean, like, I think statistically that plays out too, like, I don't, there wasn't a lot of,
Something to,
across the
I can tell
board,
you
the
right now,
engagement was
I'm doing
way
AMI.
down.
I
with
just
that.
graded it yesterday.
What's
So,
that?
It worked very well. I probably have less than.
Yeah, I'm not saying uniquely to your
seven-
situation
I'm
didn't
saying
work,
7 or
I'm
8
saying that
kids.
uniquely to mine,
Out
it
of
sure as heck didn't.
65, I probably have 7 kids that haven't turned it in. So, and
Oh, that's
like I
good.
said, not only do they get a grade, I go in and mark them as present, so.
I'd rather have them sitting in the building than do
Oh, yeah,
anything
yeah, I-
virtual ever. If
definitely
there's
agree.
any option between the two, I'd certainly rather them be here, that'd be
Oh,
my
I agree
opinion on it.
completely. I agree completely.
Right.
100%.
something to consider with extending the school day instead of doing AMI at all. We'll run up on, right now we have a week break between school and summer school, but we get done about a week early. And so we only have 8 total days we can even work with until we
Yeah.
push our summer school right out of the calendar. And so we're up against that a little bit, so we really can't make up much more than 8. And we're limited, even an AMI, to 36 hours if we would do that
I was
anyway.
kidding, I mean,
I
that'd be
don't
pretty
know
extreme
anything
if
about
we had to
elementary
make up
students
8.
as far as that stuff goes, but I do know that that can be sold to high school students, definitely, as this counts as a day, you don't have to make it up, and they pay more attention to that stuff than what you think.
Don't let me put words in Ms. Higginbotham's mouth, but I felt like she felt they could be fairly effective in this circumstance. Would you agree with that?
Yes, and I think she had a plan of the packets and making sure they got home and had it online, lots of availability for resources for the little guys.
We can also try it, and if it doesn't work very well for us, we can adjust. But I do kind of hear what I needed to hear. We got concerns about kids missing learning opportunities, whether it's coming in at the end of the year, or whether it's just getting some degree of learning, 50 to 80% or so. You guys are concerned, as I am. I think I put in my report, I worry about the effectiveness. I had a similar experience to you broadly there at JC. It was a bit of a wrestling match. I'm just trying to, get anything I can get. I'd rather get 10% than 0%.
Well, yeah.
But I'll shoot for 99.9, knowing I've always have room for improvement. So thank you.
I kind of think when it's the multiple days out, I know speaking from my kids, they wouldn't admit it if one of you asked them, but if I asked them, they would say they were ready to come back to school and they were looking for stuff to do. And I think if we would have had it set up and ready to go and made one of those days last week an AMI day, they would have been totally fine with it.
The timing of Christmas break
Yes.
and this,
It was
yeah,
brutal.
definitely did not help any.
I mean,
But it also would have hurt us anyways, because the kids didn't have the opportunity to come back to school to get a packet.
yeah.
Than to be able to
exactly.
do AMI, so, I mean, I think it definitely would have been helpful, but it still, we wouldn't have been able to in this situation, but.
I think it was 89 or 90 that we had a very similar event, and then we had a warm day where it rained and turned everything into a sheet of ice that year. And man, we may have been out 3.5 weeks that year at that time. It was a really long Christmas break. Of course, we didn't know what a Chromebook was at that time. We would have thought it was more than likely a hot rod. Like a book taco. It would have been something like that, but a Chromebook, that can't be right.
Okay. Moving on to action items, 8.1, resolution of election.
All right, each year we have to vote our resolution of election as it was presented in your board documents.
Okay. So I guess we need to take a vote to,
Yes, sir.
vote to approve the notice of annual school election, is that what it is, or?
That it would be appropriate.
Okay. And then,
I move we approve the notice of annual school election.
okay. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Any discussion? Those that are on that have filed are Andy Warren, Larry Hunt, Pamela Stevens, and Jamie Bish.
Yes.
All those in favor, please raise your right hand. All those opposed, motion passes. Or is that?
That would be the board candidate filing.
Okay,
I thought maybe I missed one in there. We'll need to
No.
have one for the annual notice. or
okay,
the
so that's the
annual-
annual notice. This is the board candidate filing. Okay,
Yes, sir.
I apologize. So the board candidate filing are the 4 people that I already mentioned. Do I have a motion to approve the board candidate filing?
I move we approve the board candidate filing.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay.
Who said second? Thank you, Naomi.
All those, any discussion? All those in favor, please raise your right hand. All those opposed? Motion passes. Okay, district homeless liaison.
So, historically, our high school principal has been our district homeless liaison, and we made that adjustment. We also made that in our submission to the state. However, this is tiered monitoring year, and I call this bump learning, where they send you some questions about what you do, and they just said, well, hey, how do you record the approval of your homeless liaison in there? Well, we don't, I didn't know we did record that. And so the great thing about tiered monitoring is they ask you how, and if you haven't done that yet, you can just take a vote and we'll be all square. And so we need to take an official vote acknowledging that Erin Sassman is our district homeless liaison. She is not a homeless liaison, she is the student homelessness liaison.
I'll make a motion for Erin to be the district homeless liaison.
Second.
A motion and a second to approve Erin Sussman as the district homeless liaison. Any discussion? Okay. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. All those opposed? Motion passes. That's all of the action items that's on here. I want to ask if there's any interest, or if we should take action to visit proposing something for the ballot for the operating levy.
For what?
For,
Raising the operating.
yeah, if we should discuss raising the operating levy.
That's on this year then. is what
That
you're
would
talking
be
about.
for this year, yeah.
I think,
Yep.
go ahead.
I was just gonna
Wait,
say,
wait.
it sounds like we're kind of up against the calendar, and so if that is something that we want to do, we need to get the ball rolling because it has to be done by the end of the month.
I think there's some things to probably consider and think about and discuss prior to that leap, is my opinion.
Okay,
Like that would be my suggestion. I think that, I don't know. I would not be, I just think we should consider some things.
okay.
Would we like to consider those in a different election window? I'm okay with whatever you guys decide, but I want to be, do we need to have a special meeting for next week? Or are we going to punt? Or wait till maybe next year? to
Pretty
consider?
serious thing, we just sort of came up with it right here. You
I know.
what
Oh,
I'm saying?
I
Like,
totally
it's
agree.
like-
I just,
I think it's worth kind of thinking about.
as I reviewed the documents for today's meeting today, I'll be honest, the timeliness of it sort of caught up with me, and,
But I mean, I'm party of one here, like, but that'd be,
yeah.
my thoughts would be to not right now do that.
I'm on the same page as you. I want to collect my thoughts on it. I'm not opposed to a special meeting for us to discuss it further. I'm not prepared though tonight to make a decision.
But given the discussion today, Mark, certainly worth bringing up, it's a good idea.
Yeah.
Mhm. Okay. So, are we saying not for April, or,
I think we need to think about it and maybe have another meeting before that has to be posted.
I say it has to be decided before January 28th, right?
Yes,
Right.
ma'am. And I have to have time to get the bond language back, which can be a one-day turnaround. But again, I'm counting on Gilmore Bell to make that a one-day turnaround and get us those. And then I need to drop them off at both county offices by the 28th.
20th?
8th,
28th.
28th, sorry.
28th.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the 20th would be a tight time.
Yeah,
We'll have a special meeting shortly.
28th would be not next Tuesday, but the following Tuesday. Okay. I think I get where we're going with that, so that's fine. That's good.
Do we want to schedule a special meeting for next week then? To discuss this?
I mean, I would be okay with that. I just worry about us being able to stay competitive or even, given the current appetite of the state to give us funding, and, you know, we're at the bottom as far as our tax rate. I mean, I think that we've done really well with what we have. I just worry going forward where we're gonna be. So, what if we were to have a meeting, try to have a meeting next Thursday, the 23rd?
I'm good.
Same here.
Okay.
6:30 again, same place?
Same place, same time.
Okay.
Would that work? Okay. Is there anything else? What about the rest of this side of the table?
I'm good with
If we met next Thursday to discuss this?
Next Thursday? Fine.
Okay. Okay. Is there any other items? The next regular meeting will be February 20th. Do I have a motion to adjourn to closed session?
I move we adjourn closed session.
Then you have to read the thing.
Let us read this.
Then you have to read the whole ballot.
Oh, we have to close session.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Oh,
All
yeah.
right, I move we adjourn to closed session. Threw me off there. Pursuant of RSMO 610.021, ASD subsections 13 relative to personally identifiable employment information, 3 personnel actions, and I think it's 1 legal action involving a public body and or privileged communication among the body and its representatives / attorneys.
We got a second.
Second.
Roll call vote.
Yes.
Brad? Lori?
Yes.
Naomi?
Yes.
Yes.
Brad?
Yes.
Jamie?